Okay, yeah, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to another class. And the last time we actually, built an application, using the concept of recycler views, okay. We talked about collections the last time. Okay, we're actually moving forward. We're moving forward. So today we're actually going to be looking at activities and intents. Yes, we're going to be looking at activities and intents. I already have a code that I've actually written out, so I didn't want to actually write it during the class because it's a bit long, not really that long, but it can be overwhelming based on some certain things that are there. So let me just share my screen and then let's kick start this. So I hope you can see my screen. You can see my screen, just raise your hand. Let me be sure that okay, that's fine. Thank you. Okay, so let's move ahead. Okay, so this is actually a dictionary application. It's just a demo that we're going to be using. We're not just going to use this here. We're going to use it also next week when we get to really explore the concept of fragments. But for now, this is just for the purpose of activities and intents. I'm actually going to the link to this particular code is going. I'll put it in the description on the YouTube channel. I'll also drop it on the Slack channel for you guys, so you can actually just get it. Also, yes, you need to actually get it because we're going to be using it in subsequent classes. Okay, so let me just give us an overview of this application. So let me just run it and then we'll move. So just an overview. Okay, it's just a dictionary application. Okay, it's just a dictionary application. You have a list of words. Okay, you have a list of words and then their meanings. Yes, so that's just the whole concept surrounding that. Okay, so let's move. So what do we have here? We have activity package. You have the adapter. Okay, so this is just in the classes we talked about packages and having to arrange your files. Okay, so that's basically that. And then we open up this activity. You have two activities here, the main activity and then a detailed activity. And then for adapters, we have two adapters here. Of course, we've talked about adapters before. Okay, we have the letter adapter and then we have a word adapter. Okay, so we'll be specifically looking into the letter adapter. Okay, these are letter adapter. Okay, let me open it up. I know you're going to be seeing a lot of things, but don't worry, just keep cool. Okay. Just keep cool. So I kind of left some comments, okay, for the sake of those who actually just get the code, so you can actually know what each method is actually doing. Okay, so you have the letter adapter. Okay, this is actually used by the recycler view we have in our main activity. Okay, so let me just give us a rundown. So in our main activity, we have a recycler view here in our main activity. Okay, so this particular recycler view is actually the letter adapter actually uses this particular recycler view. Okay, now each letter is actually a button that has an on-click listener. Okay, each letter is a button that has an on-click listener. Okay, for now it's actually empty. Okay, it's actually empty. So, but we'll actually handle, a button presses, okay, to navigate to the detailed activity. That's what we're talking about. I'll talk about activities and intents. Okay, another brief overview. You have the word adapter. We also have the word adapter. Okay, now the word adapter, okay, is actually used by the recycler view in the detailed activity. So this is our detailed activity here. This is the XML, yes. So the word adapter is used by this recycler view in the detailed activity to display a list of words. The other one displays list of letters. This one displays list of words. Okay, we can't actually navigate to this screen yet. So let me just show us the demo when I run this application. Okay, this is how it looks like. Okay, so currently nothing happens, just a recycler view, just a list of letters A to Z. And this is the main activity. So clicking on it, of course, nothing happens. which is what, so we're going to be able to click on a particular letter, and we are going to, in fact, basically we want to move to the second screen where you get to see list of words. Okay, so that is actually that. So let me take this out. Okay, so what else? So our main activity, of course. So we'll do a little bit of changes here already. We'll make some few changes. This is where we implement certain things like we'll introduce to certain things like options menu to actually display. That is actually a button that will display. We want to be able to toggle between lists and grid layouts. Of course, what you actually saw before on the application was a list that is a linear layout. So we want to be able to toggle between that and then the grid. Okay, so that's just a brief overview of that. So let's go into what the major thing we have for today, the reason why we have this. Okay, so I want to introduce us to intents. Okay, I want to introduce us to intents. Okay, so maybe I should just, so intents. Yes, that's what I'm actually introducing us to today. So let me just bring this up so I can type a bit of things. Okay, so basically an intent is an object that represents an action to be performed. Okay, just take the literal meaning of the word intent from the word intention. Intent, what is your intent? Okay, it's an object representing some action to be performed. Okay, now the most common, but not really only, is actually used to launch an activity. That's the most common use of intent. Not the only use, but the most common use of intent is actually to launch an activity. Okay, now there are actually two types of intents. You have the implicit. You have the implicit intent. Sorry, but okay, and then you have the explicit intent. Okay, so implicit intent and explicit. Okay, so these are the two types of intents we have. Okay, implicit intent and explicit intent. So we're going to be looking at them one after the other. So firstly, let's start with the explicit intent. So an explicit intent is actually is an intent that is specific, highly specific. That is, you actually know the exact activity that you want to launch. Okay, you actually know the exact activity you want to launch. So it's basically, let's just say, let's try to bring it down. So probably you have an intent of yours is to get into a room, okay, and give you want to actually give out money. Explicit intent is you actually knowing the person you want to give in a group of people, just something like that. Okay, it's actually specific. You know who exactly you want to give that money to. Okay, so that's basically what explicit intent is all about. It's an intent that is specific, where you know the exact activity that is to be launched, the exact screen that you want your user to see when a particular action is taken. Now, for implicit intent is actually abstract. Okay, what you basically do, you just tell the system the type of action that you want to make. Okay, but you don't know what you need to actually perform that action. Like, for example, you want to open a link. Okay, so for some of us who have actually opened links, of course, I believe all of us have done that. So when you click on a link, you can have so many options, so many applications that pops up. Then you now have the opportunity to choose which application you want to actually launch that URL or link with. Okay, so when you click on a link, you can decide to open maybe with Google Chrome, if you have another browser there, if you have Opera Mini, or if it is something that it might show you a notepad. Like it just gives you options. Okay, and then you can choose from it. So that's what implicit intent is. Okay, just like opening a mail, composing an email, or even making a phone call. Okay, if you have, for people who have their normal dialer, so people who have Truecaller, okay, so these are options that can come up when you maybe click on a contact actually. So that's actually implicit intent. It's abstract. You just tell it the type of action, okay, like I said, such as opening a link, making a phone call, composing an email. Okay, so the system is actually responsible for figuring out how to fulfill that request. So implicit intent is, look, I want to give money to a group of people. Okay, so implicit intent is, okay, fine. It doesn't really, you now that actually wants to perform the action, you're not the one to say how it's going to be done or what should actually carry out that process. The system does that for you. Okay, so that's basically what implicit intent is actually all about. The truth is, you've been using these things, you've just not really known them by their names actually, but we've all been using this in one way or the other. Okay, so moving on, generally when showing an activity in your application, you are actually using an explicit intent. Okay, whenever you're showing an activity in your application, you're using an explicit intent. Okay, now another thing, now for actions that actually doesn't necessarily involve maybe your current application, let's say you actually found the documentation and you want to share, what you actually use is an implicit intent. Okay, for some of us that have tried to share things, when you want to share, you see a lot of options come up. Okay, that's implicit intent, because this system is just showing, you don't know, you can't actually say, okay, fine, on clicking of this share. When you want to implement a share button, okay, do you want to actually hard code it or tell the people that, look, this share will only work for Gmail. This share you can only share this through probably WhatsApp. Okay. No, you won't do that. So share is actually an implicit intent, because there are so many ways you might want to share something. You might want to do it through Bluetooth, through mail, through your Google Chrome browser, through your messaging, through your WhatsApp. There's a lot of applications you can actually share. So that's a basic, that's actually a very relatable example when it comes to implicit intent, because we've all used the share functionality before. Okay, so you actually use an explicit intent for actions or presenting screens in your application. Okay, so let's move on. Let's see. So generally, what I've actually just said is this: implicit intent, okay, is actually often used, okay, for presenting activities from another application or a system feature. Explicit intent is just generally your own application's activities, just the particular activities in that application. You use explicit intent. For implicit intent, has to do with activities from another application. Okay, so one thing you should understand is that the intent stuff, okay, it describes the request, not the actual results. Okay, the implicit intent, okay, it actually describes the request, not the actual result. Okay, so that's just a bit of what it is. So let us actually now set up an explicit intent. So remember, we said explicit intent is generally in your own application, your own application's activities. So let us set up explicit intent in this code we have actually, we have here. So let's set up one. We'll use one now. So this is where I want to actually set up my intent. Okay, I want to, based on this application, I want to click on a letter and I want it to take me to the list of words, which is the detailed activity. Currently, I'm in the main activity. So on clicking this button in the main activity, I want it to take me to this screen where I have a list of words. That's what I want to do. So I'm actually, I'm going to do that in my letter adapter, where we have our unbind viewed holder. That's where I'm actually going to do that. Okay. So remember, we know what happens in the unbind view holder. I've talked about that. So I'm going to get a reference to the button. the button I have there, and I'm going to put an on-click listener. So this is actually going to set an on-click listener on all the buttons. Okay, remember this is for a particular word view. It binds it. You are reusing a view. So setting it right here, okay, it applies to every reusable word view as far as that button is concerned. So let's set on click listener. So how do we work out this whole explicit intent thing? So first of all, I'm actually going to get a reference to the context. Okay, I'm going to do that by saying let me say file context, okay, equals, I'm going to say holder. Of course, I need to use the view holder dot, okay, holder dot view to get the particular view and to get the context, okay. Now that's that. And then what is the next thing? Now I'll create an intent. Okay, so how do I create an intent? I'm just going to create a variable to store that. So I can just say val intent equals, so I'm going to call the intent class. Yeah, we have it here, intent, okay, singular. And it takes, it takes some certain parameters, okay, so one of which is context. So we have already gotten the context. So I'm going to pass in the context, and then it now takes the destination, okay, the destination, that's the class. Where are you going to? So we are going to the detail activity, and then by convention, we have class.java. Okay, so that's actually how you create your intent. Okay, so the name of the activity we want to show is specific with the detail activity. Okay, now an actual object of this detail activity is created behind the scenes, actually. So that's actually behind the scenes. So now I want to do something. Of course, when you're creating an intent, when you want to move to an activity, it's possible you want to take an information from one screen to another screen. Okay, so you can do that using your impedance. A typical example of passing information is this. Okay, when you some of us have actually, depends on the applications you've been using, but let's assume you have okay, you have a list of words. So let me just okay, I'm thinking of the application I'm going to use that we all can relate with. Okay, so let's say your WhatsApp. Okay, let me bring up my WhatsApp here. Confirm. So okay, yes. So yes, on your WhatsApp. So when you open your chats, you have a list of chats. Okay, and then so many people there. So when you actually click on one person that you want to chat with, you notice, of course, the person has a name that you've stored it with. When it takes you to the chat area, you can notice that it's actually, you see the person's name at the top left. Okay, that's because we are passing this information as we are moving to the next screen. So how we can do that here is using what we call intent, which is the intent we have created. And then we use a method called put extra. So what do we want to put? Now, the put extra takes a name, which is a string, and a value. Remember, we did maps. Okay, so I'm going to call the name letter. Okay, and then what will the value be? Now, I want the value. Okay, I want the value to be this particular. Let me just bring this out. Yes, so I want the value to be whatever letter is written on these buttons. That's what I want the value to be. So when I click on C and move to the next screen, I'll see that, okay, fine, it is the list of words that applies to C that is here. So that's what I'm going to say. That means I need to say the value should be the text on this button. So I'm going to do that by saying, of course, I need to get the button. I need to do holder dot button dot text. Okay, so this will get the text, and of course we need to convert it to string. Okay, so now some of us will be asking, what's an extra? So an extra, okay, like I said, remember, intent is actually just a set of instructions. Okay, there's no instance of the destination activity just yet. There's no instance just yet for now. So instead, an extra is actually just a piece of data, such as a number, or a string that has a name that is given a name to be retrieved later. That's just what an extra is. It's just a piece of data with a name to be retrieved later. That's basically what it is. It's just similar. It's similar to adding to passing an argument when you call a function. Okay, so let's actually move that now. Some of us might be asking why am I using toString? Okay, like the buttons text is already a string, right? Well, sort of. It's actually a type of character sequence. Okay, which is something you call an interface. I think if I'm going to show you, yeah, you can see it. Car sequence. It's actually what a car was. So we return the text that the text is displaying. If set text, of course, car sequence was called and da da da. So it's actually what a type of car sequence, which is something called an interface. Okay, so you don't need to know anything about interfaces for now. So don't worry, we'll get there. Okay, but just know that it's a type, such as your normal string and everything. Okay, so you can just think of car sequence as a more generic, representation of a string kind of class. So a button's text property could be a string, or it could be any object that is also a character sequence. So this put extra method accepts a string, not just any character sequence. Okay, it accepts, the method itself accepts a string, not any character sequence. So that's why we had to call the toString method to make sure that we are actually returning a string. So that's that. So we'll just call, we've created our intent. Now is to actually call the last method, which is the start activity method on the context object and pass in the intent. So I'm just going to say context dot start activity, and then I'll pass in the intent. Okay, so that's actually all. So I'm going to run this and then let's see the results. Let's see the results. Okay, so applying changes. Okay, so we have to reinstall and restart. Okay, so this is what we have. So on clicking on, let's try now, let's click on D. So we see we actually move to the next screen, okay? We move to the next screen. On clicking on A, you see we move to the next screen, but we can't actually see anything here, okay? We can't actually see anything here, so let's actually work that out. Okay, so that's our detail activity. So let's know. Okay, so we have not actually populated. Yeah, the reason I think I have not actually done that. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so let's see how fast I can. Okay, so but one of the things we're going to do now is to set up. One thing we're going to do now is to set up the detail activity. Okay, now remember I said that we actually used a put extra. So now when I click on A, it takes the text A and moves it to the next screen. That's actually what the intent, the put extra does. But it has gone to this place, but we need to retrieve it. Okay, we need to actually retrieve it. So that's what we are actually going to be working on. How can we actually retrieve, a particular code? Okay, so just give me a second. So this is it. Let's just do this. So just call the binding of the inflates. We'll just do this. So let me just copy this, then do the same thing here, but we're going to make some few changes. So we're not using activity main binding. So it's going to be detail activity. Okay, sorry, hold on. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so it seems I've not set up. So let me see, confirm something. Frame layout, then detail. Okay, so I need to get, so I think I need to make sure the binding works here. So activity detail binding, yes, that's that. Dot inflate, and then we're passing the layout inflator. Okay, so we need to get a reference to, so we'll create a lit init variable here. Okay, and then we'll call it recycler view. No, come on, let's just be fast and then make things a bit more. Okay, so we're not using the letter adapter here. So what we need is the word adapter. So word adapter. Okay, so I think we're all fine. Recycler view binding and recycler view. Okay, let's confirm that that's the name of this recycler view. Okay, that's the name. Okay, so we still have an error somewhere. Okay, so our word adapter actually takes in two things. It takes in the letter ID, and from here we can actually see that we created two things here. It takes in the word ID and it takes in what we call a context. It takes in the word ID and a context. So let's give it that. So I'm going to actually just let's hard code something. But we're not going to hard code it always, but just for now, I'm just going to let's say let me see, what do I do? I want to make it a bit more less. Okay, so okay, so let me just pass this. Okay, so this represents the letter. That represents the letter. And then for the context, let me just pass this. Okay, that's this particular context. So let's see. I'm going to update it later on. I don't want to move faster than I should because I need to explain something before I do what I wanted to do. So let's just want to confirm something. So let's do this. Okay, good. I just wanted to bring this out. Okay, good. So good. So you see, it actually moves. We can the intent works. You can see this whole list and everything. So, but it's not really working the way it should. Okay, if you notice, when we click on B, we are still seeing A. Okay, when we click on E, we're still seeing E and A. There's a list of words on A. And the reason is because we passed in the letter ID here. Now on our word adapter class, it actually takes that particular word letter. Okay, it takes a particular letter and then it does a lot of filtering process for the word. Remember I've done used some of these methods before. We already have I actually have an array of words. So you just have filter, shuffle, takes the first 5 and then it sorts it out. So everything it does, it filters based on whatever letter you pass in here. So if I was to change this to B, and test it out, so everything we see should be words that has to do with B. Yes, you can see that. So even if I go back and click on D, I'll still see B. So, but we don't want this. This is not what we want. We want that, okay, if I click on C, I should see just the words that have to do with C. So that's what we're going to do now. So this is how I'm going to just make it a bit easier. So I'm going to create what we call, I'm going to create an object, okay, a companion object actually. It's actually just similar to creating a class. It's actually similar to defining a class, except this time you're using the object keyword. Okay, let me just show you what I'm saying. So just above my onCreate function, we're going to have companion object, okay? So the keyword companion there is actually just means that it's associated with this class, detailed activity, okay? So we don't need it, and we don't actually need to give it a separate type name. So it's just a companion object. And with this, we can actually, reuse whatever we have anywhere in our code. So I'm going to create a constant variable called letter, sorry. So because it's constant, I can actually use it capital letters, and the value will be letter. Okay, that's just that. So I want to use this constant now to update this place. We know this. I had coded this B. I had coded it. So I want to use this letter, this to update this code here. Okay. So what am I going to do? So I need to get in my intent. Okay. I want to get in this thing. So this is basically what I'm actually going to do. So let's see. So let me just do this here. Let me just come here and do it. So I want to get the letter ID that we are passing from. Then I'm going to say, okay, so first of all, I need to get, I'm going to use intent, which is from the get intent. I'm going to say dot extras dot, I want to get what we actually added when we use the put extra dot get string, and the string takes a key. When we talked about map, so the key now will be letter, which is this object that we created. So if you notice, what is here, the same word here is the same in our letter adapter, what we are passing here. Okay, it's the same thing, small letters all through letter, and here letter. So I'm just creating that object here. Okay, so to have this value. So, and of course, it has to match. So when I'm calling this, it has to match what is being. It's just like calling someone's name. You have to call the right name, and then of course I have to convert it to string. So for now, I'm going to add something you may not have seen before. Okay, this is just nullability. Okay, to check for null, because it's possible. Let me just show you. When I hover on this, it tells you only safe and that are allowed on nullable receiver of type bundle. So we'll talk more about it, because basically this actually returns a value. But it's possible that it returns a null. So to be safe and for your application not to actually crash, we add that. Okay. So let me now switch to this letter adapter. So here now, instead of actually calling this letter, instead of hard coding this, I can now use this object that I created here in this class. That's the beautiful thing about companion objects. You can use it almost anywhere. So I'm going to just, first of all, I'm going to call the class, which is detail activity. And then I'm going to say dot letter. Yes. So that actually is fine. Okay, so I think all is set. This is just to make it a bit more decent. So let's test it out. Let's see. Hope everything works out. Let's see. Okay, so we have to reinstall and then restart. Please, at any point that you are confused, of course, you can actually. So let's see. Okay, so we are still having this. Okay, this is for B. A. Okay, so we're still having this. So let's see what's up. What have we not changed? Okay, we haven't changed this. Okay, we haven't changed this. We shouldn't have this again. So I should just call letter. Yes, I should just call letter. So let's try this again. Okay, so okay, so we're still having, okay, it actually took the word. Okay, so No, that's not what we want. That's not what we want. So let's see, what are we doing wrongly? Something we're not doing right. There's something we're not doing right. Okay, so this is it. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so for now, let me do something. Let me do something. I want to create, let me create a variable. Okay, let's just move. Okay, I think let me not letter ID. Okay. Yeah, I think they think that's what we should pass. But before that, I want to be sure. Okay. Letter ID. Okay. Yeah. So okay, so okay, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. I actually forgot I got this. Yes. So what we actually got from from the other activity. Yes, thank you very much for that. Sometimes you need to, yeah, that's why I need to pay attention. Okay, so B gives us back. Okay, A gives us yes, and that's actually that. D, yeah, and then okay, yes, so that works. That actually works. So yes, we needed to pass in whatever you actually type. Okay, whatever you actually type, whatever we get from the previous activity. Okay, whatever text on the button from the previous activity. Yes, that's what we're supposed to pass, not this object. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on. Okay. So let's actually look at implicit intent, okay? Let's look at implicit intent. Let's try to set up implicit intent. Okay, so basically we talked about what implicit intent does, okay? We actually just specify the kind of action and then leave everything to the system to work it out. So this is how we're going to do it. So it's very simple. Basically what we want to do, I want to have a functionality where when I click on maybe a word here, it takes me to my browser and searches for that word online. Okay, so that's basically what I want to do. Okay, so let's see. How do we do that? So let's create an implicit intent. So in my component object here, I want to create something I'll reuse. So that's why. So I'm going to say search. Let me call it search prefix. Sorry, it has to be. Okay, well, I can just make it. Doesn't have to be. I can't. No, it must. Should be const. Okay, just say val. Okay, so now I want to say HTTPS. Sorry. Okay, and then we have this, and then we have this. Okay, so I want to have www.google.com/ and then we have search. Sorry. Okay, and then we have this. I think this is basically, yeah. So this is actually kind of like a search stuff for. So this is what we're going to be making use of. Okay, so now this is basically what we have. So I want to perform a Google search when you click on a word, and of course, Google search. When you click on it, you want to actually search. You want to use a browser. So if you have 4 or 5 browsers on your application, it should pop up all of them, and then you decide what you want to use. That is the implicit intent. So in our word adapter now, because it's the words we want to search, I'm going to just do this. Everything we're going to be doing is in our unbind view holder, because that's where the work actually is. So I'm going to call a set on click listener, okay, on that view. So folder dot, the name is button dot set on click listener. So what do we want to do when you click one of them? So for some of us, so let me I want to create what we'll call a query URL. I'm going to really explain that. Let me just use, and this is going to be of type URI. So I'll explain. I have URI, which we have here dot parse rather. Okay. So what do we want to parse? Okay, what do we want to pass into this method? Okay. We want to get this guy, this young man here. So remember, we'll have to use the class and then we have access to that. So I'm going to say, of course, I need to put this. I'm going to say detail. Sorry, before that, I can actually just do this here. So detail, activity, and then dot, I'll get my search prefix. Yes, good. Okay, so that's one thing. I want to get that. And then that gives me, now when I bring this gives me just www.google.com/search and everything. But I need to attach the word. I need to attach that text, whatever is on that text, whatever is on that particular button I clicked on. I need to attach it to my search URL, okay? And that text is here, where we have holder.button.text equals what item. We created item, so the item is what filtered words dot position. This is a particular item. So any text that is there, it's actually what the item. So I'm just going to pass in just after this. I'm going to just call item. So to call it, since it's a string, since it's it's a variable rather, I'm going to say item. Okay, so this is just going to bring them together. So basically what you have, what this means is www.google.com/search and then all those stuff. And then you have maybe book. I need to just search for book. So we'll see how that works. So let me just explain what the whole URL thing is. URI stuff. Sorry. So URI it actually stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. Okay. Now you already know, some of us already know URL, which is Uniform Resource Locator. Okay. So it's that is actually is a string. Okay. Uniform URL is actually a string that points to a web page. That's URL. Is a string that points to a web page. But a URI is a more general term for the format actually. All URLs are actually URIs. Okay, all URLs are actually URIs, but funny enough, not all URIs are URLs. Okay, I know it might seem a bit confusing. Okay, see, other URIs, for example, an address for a phone number. Okay, it could actually begin with something like this. For people, an address for a phone number could, if you look, foreign and all this stuff, you could actually see an address, the address for a phone number can actually begin with this. Okay, but this is not considered as, it's not considered a URN, which is uniform resource name. Rather, it's be considered as a URL. So the data type used to represent both of them is actually called URI. That's the data type that's used to represent both of them. Okay, some of these things you may not really have to bother about it now. We'll get to really dive more into them much later. Okay, so that's actually that. So let's see. Let's see. So let's just see what this does. Before that, I want to try out something. So let's see. Okay, so let's just okay, so yeah, and then so don't worry, let's move on. So another thing I want to do is to kind of set up menu, and the icons. Okay, that's another thing I would want to do. So, but before I'll run out that listen much later. I'll use that to round up this URL, making use of this to search. Okay, it's not now actually, but I'll see if I'll do that before the end of the class. It actually leads me to want to teach about something that's not time, but I just wanted to show you how it look like, and then, but let's because now we have to create an intent. When you click on it, we need to do something with this guy. Okay, we need to do something with this guy. So that's another form of intent that I don't want to teach now, but that's just for you to know that. Okay, so let's go to setting up. Let's set up menus and icons. Okay, now we just want to add a top menu here. We want to add a menu somewhere to add a menu here. Okay, so we can able to toggle between a linear grid, linear and then grid. So let's do that. Let's do that. Okay, so let's first of all we need to actually import. Let's import two icons. Let's actually import two icons that we're going to make use of. Drawable. Sorry, that's not okay. I can just let's use vectors. Let's try vector set. So grid. This is not looking it's not looking as cool as I want it to be. Okay, but let's just use it actually. So just name this. Okay, I think that's fine. Say next, and then finish that. Okay, so I think that's fine. And then let's add another one. Let me see. Let me see. Okay, I think which of these do we use? Yeah, let's use this view list. Okay, so I think I can, based on that view list I saw, I can look for something. Sorry. Okay, yes, this is what I was looking for. This actually represents grid far more. So let me just see. I see underscore grid. Okay, so let's just call it this. Because I don't think I can use grid. I just grid again since I used it before. Okay, so that's that. So just those two icons. Okay, so we actually need a way to tell the system what options are to be displayed in the app bar, okay, and which icons to use. So to actually do this, we're going to add a resource file. I'm going to go to a new resource file, new, and then I'm going to say Android resource file. Now, what type of Android resource file do I want? I want a menu. Okay, so I'm going to click on menu, then I'm just going to give it a name. I'll say menu underscore layout, or you can just say menu. Sorry, you can just say menu if you want to. Okay, so okay, that's fine. So the next thing is to let's add. Okay, so what we'll now add, let's add what we call items. We're going to add what we call items. So let me just could have just let's just do it manually. So items. So and then so let's give it an ID, and then let's say let the ID be switch layout. Okay, and then let's give it a title, switch layout, and then let's give it an icon. Okay, so let's give it an icon. You can actually see the changes there in the design view. So I'm going to give it an icon. So the icon I want to give it is the what was the first one we created? Okay, I need to check. Okay, I think it's this one, baseline view list. Are you kidding me? I thought okay, so that's the icon. And then there's this, I'm going to show as an action. Do you want to show it as an action? I'm going to say always, and always actually makes it here. So it shows it as an action that can be taken. Okay, so that's actually that's just one of the items. So I want to add another item. Okay, oh, well, this is actually fine. This is fine. That's fine. It's fine. Let's just use one. We'll use one and then we'll be toggling between that. So we don't need to add another. So of course, you have to extract string resource, and that's fine. Okay, so now, so the structure of our menu file is actually simple. Okay, it's just like you have always done in your XML. Okay, having an ID, a title, icon, so and everything. So and then the show as action. So like I said, this tells the system how to show the button. So because we set it to always, the button will always be visible in the app bar, and it will not become part of an overflow menu. Okay, we'll talk about all those overflow menu much later. Okay, so so of course, just because we have this property set doesn't actually mean it to do anything. So we still need to add some code to our main activity because that's where we have this. That's where we're going to put that. So in our main activity, we'll set up that. Let's implement the menu button. So there are a few things to actually do. First, of course, it's going to be a good idea to create a property that will keep track of the layout state that the application is in. Okay, to know if the application is in grid layout or is actually in linear layout, we need to keep track of that state. Okay, because that will make it easier to toggle the layout button. So I'm going to create a global variable that's before the onCreate in the class. Let me just say private var is linear layout manager, and I'm going to set it to be true. Okay, I'm going to set it to be what true. So when the user toggles the button, we want the list of items to turn to a grid of items. Okay, remember we actually did the grid layout in the previous recycler view assignments. Okay, so grid layout manager allows for multiple items on a single row. You know that already. So the next thing I'm going to do is to create a function let's now create a function that will choose a particular layout. Okay, let's create a function for that. So I'm going to do that outside of onCreate. So I'm going to say, let me call it, that's going to be a private fun. I'm going to call it choose layout. Okay, and so how am I going to choose this layout when I click on this button? I'm going to say if this is linear layout manager, if it is true, which it is already by default, if it is true, we want our recycler view that's recycler.layout manager. We want it to be linear layout manager. And I'm going to pass, of course, I'm going to pass this as a context. Okay. But if it is not true, that is our else, what do we want to do? We want the layout manager of the recycler view. We want the layout manager of the recycler view to be the grid layout manager. And then you pass in the context, and then we want a count of 4. Okay, that's actually that. And then, so after this, of course, we need to then set, of course, after toggling it, we need to set the adapter. We need to set the adapter, and then I'm calling a letter adapter. Okay, so that's actually how we'll toggle between, toggle the layouts to be either linear or that. So here we're actually using an if statement, so to assign the layout manager. Okay, so At the same time, we note the code actually assigns the adapter too. Okay, so the letter adapter is used for both the list and the grid layout. That's why we actually that. Okay, so now recall when we actually set the menu in our XML, which is this, when we actually set this, we actually gave it a static icon, which is this. We gave it an icon. But however, toggling the layout, you should update the icon so that to reflect its new function. So that means when you click on this, if it switches to grid, the icon should also change. That's basically what I'm talking about. When you click on it and it's showing grid, the icon should change to that of grid. That's what I'm saying. So let's do that. So I'll create a function for that. Function called, let's say, private and font set icon. Okay, and then it's going to, now what is it? We're going to take a menu item as a parameter. A menu item as a parameter. Okay, and then so let's say so now it's possible for it to be null. So I'm actually going to just make this nullable so by doing this. So I'm going to now say if the menu item null, then return. This is just to be on the safe side. This is just to be actually on the safe side. Okay, so just give me a second, guys. Okay, so moving on. So after returning, that's if it is null, just return, don't do anything. But now, if it is not null, we want to say menu item, which is a particular menu, dot, there's the property of icon to get the icon. Okay, so we can get icon, we can set icon. So this now is going to be equal to, so what I'm going to say is this: if our linear layout manager, that is this, okay, if this is true, that means it's actually showing the list, okay, showing it as a list and not a grid. If it is true, we're going to display, the icon is going to change to that of the list. So we'll get it by using, I'm going to use a context compact, dot get drawable, sorry. Okay, this takes a context, which is this, and then I'm going to now take our drawable. I think so, called it, so this was what we used. So let's see, hope this, I can just, okay. So we have to check this, so else, let me just copy this. And then this becomes grid. I think we called it layout, yes. Okay, so this function is now going to change the icon. So the icon actually is conditionally set to be that of the linear layout. Okay, that's the default. So for our app to actually use all this we have set, we have not actually displayed it. Okay, so for our app to really now use this menu, we need to override two more methods. Okay, we need to override two more methods. Okay, so outside this function, there's a method called onCreateOptions. onCreate. Okay, so I need to know where I am and to check the scope. This is this. Okay. So let's override right fun on create options menu. Yeah, on create option menu. Okay, so this is the function that creates our option menu. So we're going to override that, and I don't want to return this. Sorry, I'll just. So this is basically what I want to do first before I do this. Let me take this out. So I want to get a menu inflator. Okay, this is what inflates the menu. What inflates the menu? Menu inflator. Okay, so menu inflator.inflate. We want to inflate the menu now with the menu we created, and the menu we created is in R, which is our resources under the menu package, and then this is it. So r.menu dot and then our menu layout. Okay, so that inflates it. Okay, so yeah, and then you have to pass in one more parameter, which is menu. So this menu you're passing is this young man, this guy. Okay, so the next thing we want to get the button. So let's say file, let's say menu button. Let's call it menu button. Okay, so it's equal to, so to get that, we'll call the menu dot find item. And what do we want to find? We want to find r.id dot switch layout. So if I do this, Control B, you see this is the item we are looking for. That's why we use the method called find item. Okay, and of course, for null sake, no, yeah, we have to do that. So after I've gotten the ID, we now call a method called set icon. So setting the icon, we now pass in our menu button that we created. And finally, this function returns a Boolean. So we're going to return what true when when all is done. So basically what we just did is just after inflating the layout here, okay, we just call set icon, and to ensure the icon is correct based on the layout. Okay, so it actually returns a Boolean, which is why we are returning true. Okay, so hence we're actually saying we want the options menu to be created after this whole thing, has been done. Return true, so create it. Okay, so the last thing we need to implement, the last method we need to override is a method called on options item selected. So when you actually select an option menu, when you click on it, what should it do? Okay, so I'm just going to say return. So return when, I've used the when statement before. So when the item, a particular menu item dot ID, so when we say item dot item ID, that is a particular item. Okay, so when you click on that one, so which of them? So we can now say the only one we have here is the r.id switch layout. That's the only item ID we have. So when you click on that, what should happen? Well, let me put this here. So when you click on it, first of all, we'll do something. I'm going to say is linear layout manager equals what? Not is linear layout manager. Okay, so we're basically setting the is linear layout manager, which is a Boolean, to the opposite value. That's basically what we're doing. We're setting it to the opposite what value. Okay, so we're not done. And then, so after setting it to the opposite value, what do we now want to do? I want to now choose layout, which is the method we created. And then I want to set the icon, and to set the icon, I need to pass the item. So I'm going to pass item, and then I'll return true. Okay, it seems like a lot, but don't worry, just getting it. I'll stop for questions. So of course, you need to add an else, okay, when using the when statement. So else, what do we want to do? We just want to return. There's no other option now, so just going to return the super class super.on options that, and they'll pass that. So that's actually that. So this is called anytime you tap on a menu, that's when you have this method being called. So that's why we need to be sure to check which menu item is tapped. That's why we're actually using this, to be sure when you hit this particular menu, this is what happens. Okay, so we basically use a when statement. So if the ID that is going to be passed here matches this guy, okay, then we will now negate the value. You know, the linear layout manager was always true, but now we'll negate it. That's why we have this not operator, negation operator to negate it. So this is now false. Okay, so we negate it. Okay, and then we'll now call our choose layout. After we've negated it, we'll now call our choose layout. Okay. Okay, of course, if this will, which will now come here and check, our choose layout function checks if this is true, and then you should put linear layout manager. But because we have negated it now, that means it's no longer true, it is now false, and then it will now change it to the grid. Okay, and so I think one more thing we'll just do before we run the application. So since the layout manager and adapter are set in our choose layout, these two, they're actually set here. That means I can actually take this one out. I can actually just comment this out since I'm setting it here. Of course, we're going to do a check. Okay, so let me just set that out and let's see. So we can actually just let's see. Yeah, just comment that out. So instead of actually, you know, using this inside here, I can just call my choose. Yeah, so on creating this application, well, you know, when you actually run your application, okay, on create method is actually called. So on creating this, we're calling this method. So of course, it will now run this to check if this is true, and if this is true, we're going to have the linear layout manager. If it's false, we'll have the real layout manager. So we don't need this because the adapter, we're also setting it here. This other one, we're also doing it here. So let's see how this works. Let's now try that out. So please, if you have a question, of course, just notify me. Okay, so let's install. Okay, so this is our icon. Well, of course, we could have changed the colors, but we didn't, so maybe. So let's see. So when you click on this, yes, we have it. So it is toggled, changes to the grid. Click on it again, changes, click on it. Yeah, so that's actually fine. That looks cool. You can even change, we can make the count 3. Sorry. So let's see how 3 is going to look like. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so this is it, 3. I'd like to see how 2 will look like, if you don't mind. Kind of like to play around with stuff. I'd like to see how 2 will look like. Woo. Okay, so the grid does not actually do 2. Okay, sorry, I clicked on the wrong thing. Okay, yeah, this 2. Sorry, I actually clicked on something else. Okay, so that's actually, let me put it back to 4. Oh. And then let's run that again. Okay, so that's actually how you set up, using your menu icon. Okay, that's actually how we do that. Okay, so any questions? Need to really update my any questions. Think that's actually that for intents and setting up your. So Emmanuel, go ahead. Hello, Emmanuel. Hello.
Sorry, which of the Emmanuels?
Sorry, okay, not you, my namesake. Opala, go ahead. Your hand is raised. Your mic is mute, so I don't. Maybe you're talking and then you did not know you've not unmuted yourself. Okay, so while he's actually trying to get to talk, any other person have a question? Before we call it a night. Okay, so Manuel said something. You used icon compat somewhere for low resolution images or for lower Android. Okay, so basically for the whole compact stuff, it's just to also target lower Android versions. Okay, so I hope that actually answers Emmanuel's question. Okay, Samuel. You're speaking, but I'm not hearing you. Is that from me?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's actually a question about me. I don't know, is there anything wrong in not really having the broad idea of what I'm doing, or else unless I watch the videos again and then follow what you're doing and then keep understanding bit by bit. Hope there's nothing wrong with it, or am I really laid back? Not trying to understand.
Why do I feel like saying it's your village people? Okay. No, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong.
Because my basics is actually about web development, and I'm trying to get more in tune with Android. So most times when you talk here, I really try to get it, but I don't really get it until I go back and replicate what you are doing and then follow up with the tasks you give us. So I'm just trying to know.
That's actually, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. Yeah, that's why the thing is practicing actually helps you learn and understand more. Okay, if you were actually coding along with me, it could have been a bit easier there. So there's nothing wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with having to watch the video later and get to understand it more. Of course, I don't think there's anybody here that actually sits down for maybe just 2 hours and just watch without coding anything, just 2 hours and you just understand everything. Okay, maybe there are people like that. Me, I'm not like that. Okay, the truth, of course, the longer the time you sit in a class, it's possible that some things you forget some things. And sometimes even in class, we don't want to draw the person that is teaching back, or maybe we don't want other people to feel like, okay, we don't understand a lot of things. So there's nothing wrong. As far as the major thing is that you go back and then you get to, digest these things again, and it sticks in, man. That's fine. As far as it sticks in when you go back to go through it, that's fine. That's why that's why we're recording this, so we can always have it available.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, so that's good. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other question? Yeah, yes. Okay, so I hope the Git link to free class course will be completely explicit. Okay. Yes, it will be explicit. Okay. I will actually even keep it in the I'll keep it in the description of the YouTube video, but at the same time I'll still drop it on the Slack channel. I'll just drop it on the channel for us to get. So I think I'll just push this code, and then you get to go through that. Okay, so that's fine. Any other question? Okay, so I don't want to believe that we all have issues with Git. How many of us use terminals when we're playing with Git? Let me just add this one. How many of us use terminals? If you use this terminal, just raise your hand. Okay, my namesake. The rest, what do you use? Samuel, you use terminal also?
Yeah.
Okay, so yes, let me just 5 minutes, okay? Let me just drop this. Of course, we're going to be collaborating actually, because so definitely we're going to be using Git, okay, a lot. We'll get to points where I think we'll get before the project phase. We're going to actually have to work on our Git and collaboration, test it out before the project phase. So I might actually share you guys into groups before we even get to that project phase and work on something together. And let's see how you guys get to work along each other. Okay, so of course, that's basically that. So this is just for people who don't use terminal or whatever. So first of all, the Git Status Command, it actually just shows you the basic changes in your application and the files. Okay, that's what the Git status does, okay, for. And then if you're fine with all the changes, you can use your Git add dot. That's to add everything. And then we have the Git Commits, which Git commit -m, you have to put a message. So I'm going to say adding, okay, let's say activity and intents class. Okay, just start my commit message. So to push this, I'm just going to say Git push. So some people don't use it as you, but I like to use it for tracking purposes. So Git push, what do you want to push? You want to push to your remote branch. Okay, the name of mine is Origin, I think, yeah. And then what branch am I pushing? What branch am I on? I think I'm on starter. Okay, Git push, just so starter, right? Yeah, Git push. So let's see. I hope I'm right. Git push origin start. Okay, yes. Resolving. Okay, yeah. So that actually pushes that. Okay. This is not the first time I created this branch actually. So if this was a new branch, then I would have to do a pull request and the rest. So of course we'll get to talk about that because I'm going to actually have to review your pull requests and everything. Well, we'll talk about Git. We're not going to have a class on Git. No, I'm going to have a class, but we'll get to be using it because I won't just want to sit down and start to do Git course. But if you can find resources online, of course, that's fine. Or maybe I'll just drop one or two in the resource channel. Okay, so the code, of course, to be on, I'll drop the link on the, like I said, on the Slack channel. So for us to be able to do that, just go through it, and then of course you can clone it. That's fine. You can actually clone this. That's fine. And have it on your own local. That's fine. It's public, so anybody can access it. Okay, so I think that's all for today. There are no questions. There was, I think I would have seen a hand up. Okay, so for you all, yeah, I think everybody, the Google search implementation, no, it's not now. Okay, how to clone? Okay, okay, let me show you. Let me just do that quickly. Okay, so I already have the link, so I already saved it somewhere. So let me just show you guys. Okay, so this is the link to this particular. Now the link I'm dropping is to this particular branch. This is the link here to this particular branch, not the full thing. Okay, but so if you want to clone this, so I need to make. Okay, you just go to GitHub and pick the link. Okay, I believe you can actually just go to GitHub and then you see clone, and then you just pick the link. Once you copy the link, okay, you can come to your Android Studio. Even if you have a project open, you could actually just do a file, new project. Okay, sorry, file, I think, projects from version control. And when you click on it and then you paste the URL there, and once you click on clone, it actually clones it for you and you have it on your local. So that's actually how you clone your application. So you just have everything on your local. Okay, yeah, but there's also the command of git clone. All right, think git clone and then the link. Think, yeah, there's this command also, I think so. Yeah, so that answers that question. The Google search implementation, don't worry, we'll do that. We'll do that some other time. Or maybe I'll just even leave it up to you guys. Let me leave it up to you. It's not an assignment, just play around. Well, let's see who can actually implement it. Will I want to say is it there? Yes, I dare you guys. Let me see who can implement it. So I'll leave that up to you guys to figure out. Of course, as developers, you need to be able to research. So, okay, so guys, thank you very much. Like I said, like I always say, it's always a wonderful time having to talk to us about Android. Okay, so thank you, and have a wonderful night. We're going to meet on Thursday, and on Thursday we're actually going to look into much activity life cycle, and see how the whole on create stuff and everything comes together. Yeah, so I think we'll look into activity life cycle. So I'm going to be dropping in some information on our channel. So let's just try as much as possible to pay attention to that. Okay, so thank you very much, guys, and have a wonderful